Homebrewing items in Dungeons & Dragons is garbage. Let's try that one again. Here are 5 things to consider when homebrewing items, which is the core of Dungeons & Dragons. The first thing is, homebrewing is simply creating an item that you don't know exists. There's a good possibility that someone out there has already created the item. It could even be in a book, a published book, either by Wizards of the Coast or by someone else that's not Wizards of the Coast. The bottom line is, it doesn't matter. When you're creating an item, period, you're homebrewing. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Be willing to just think, what do I need? What needs to be in this campaign? What items would I like to see? That is homebrewing, and you should absolutely do it 100%. So for the first tip of homebrewing in Dungeons & Dragons, do it all day long, every day. The second thing when homebrewing an item, and a lot of people don't give this step enough credit, what's the purpose of the item? And what I mean by that is, why was it created? It's cool to think of mechanically why an item exists, but how does it exist in the lore? What's the backstory of the item? Why was it created? What was the original purpose of the creation of the item? Many times, magic items are simply created because of the mechanical effects that we give to players, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, that's awesome. But we can homebrew magic items all day long because there's really no rules. But when a magic item serves a place, has a purpose, there's a reason it exists, there are rumors that that magic item exists, giving your players a reason to go find it. Just handing someone a magical item feels a little lackluster. But when it has purpose, when it was created for a reason, what happens when that reason shows back up, when it appears its head? Imagine a sword from the Lunar Palace that was created specifically to hunt werewolves. Why was it left at the time? Because werewolves disappeared. What happens when they come back and silver weapons don't work anymore? You are the only one that has the sword that works. Things like that make a huge impact. When you're basically creating items, the third thing to do is take your inspiration from other magic items. I have a list right here. So if I was going to have you come up with a list of magic items to get inspiration of, I would do things like the Whispering Locket, the Boots of Soft Step, the Gloves of Mending, the Blinking Badge, or the Compass of Direction. I wrote them down because they're ideas. They're simply things that take a concept and put them into place. So you can take those magic items, tweak them a little bit, and make something that's yours. Homebrewing doesn't have to be the creation of something completely new. You can take a stat block of something that already exists, retheme it, reskin it a different way, and that is homebrewing to fit in your campaign, and there's nothing wrong with that. Homebrewing is about the creation because you can break all rules when it comes to homebrewing. The question is, how well does it fit inside of your campaign? Which brings us to point number 4 when it comes to homebrewing, and that's integrating the item into your campaign. So you can create an item, you can give it to your players, and that's a homebrew item. But that's not what we're talking today. We're talking about creating homebrew items and how to integrate them and make them feel alive. Because taking a magic item out of a book and tossing it in your campaign feels a little lackluster. But when an item is integrated into your campaign, it can even add lore. So as a dungeon master, we love to talk about lore. We love to talk about the backgrounds of our campaign. So to do that, you have to integrate these things that the players will then cherish and have it so they impact the world. They're a little bit of a lore, a little bit of information hidden in that item, maybe written on the blade or lit on the pommel, that maybe even give a little bit of questions as to where did this thing come from, and a possible side arc to find out more information about the magic item. The integration of a magic item into your campaign really can flush it out. The best part is you can actually take a magic item that already exists, retheme it, refeel it, and make it feel like something new with a little bit of a backstory. Maybe with a little bit of a punch for something unique in your campaign specifically. And finally, we come to balancing and adjusting. The final thing to consider when it comes to a homebrewing an item. Here's why we talk about balancing and adjusting, because any magic item introduced into any campaign can break your campaign if you're not ready to balance and adjust for it. You don't adjust the item, you adjust the campaign. The item can do whatever you want it to do. Now, if you decide to take and throw it together an item with, a +7 to hit, you're going to break your own game unless you give something immunity to magic items, or it's something for that player to almost miss on. So just remember, when it comes to balancing and adjusting, it's something that's done consistently, constantly, and often, because you can break your game quickly if you don't consider that. At the same time, sometimes you have to adjust the campaign to the magic items you give, making things harder for your party entirely, which also brings to count if only one guy has the big bad magic item, then they become overpowered, leaving the rest of the party feel lackluster. So the balancing and adjusting is not just between DM and player, it's between the other players at the table. So keep that in mind when giving out items. How am I balancing this item with what the other party has? I don't ever talk about the balancing items of those items, because the thing is this: what are we balancing it to? You're balancing it to your game. Now, if you want homebrew to go outside of your world, yes, you do have to make sure that it's balanced and adjusted, but that's a different conversation for a different time. This was just a fun video on magic items and balancing and adjusting and homebrewing. Have fun with this, guys. I hope this was insightful. I hope it inspired you to go do some homebrew of your own. Take care, and we'll see you next time.